Hey everyone, my name is Shanice and welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be doing the mid-year freakout tag, my very first on this channel, seeing as this is my very first year on YouTube. I will link the original tag down below, and I will also write all the questions just in case you wanted to answer along and comment with your own responses down below. I figured since it's June, already midway through 2022, which I cannot believe, to be honest, I thought it would be perfect to just sit down and reflect on all the books that I have read so far this year. As of today, June 13th, I have read 44 books, which is actually, pretty good. I wanted to read 36 books in 2022 just because reading 36 books would mean that I would have accomplished all my monthly reading goals, which is, 1, read a big chunky book, 2, read 1 Latin American book, and 3, read 1 short story collection. So if I at least did that, I would be happy. But obviously I've already surpassed this, but I'm not going to change the challenge. I'm happy with the pace. I don't feel like there's a rush. So yeah, but just to let you know, I have read 44 books so far. Without further ado, let's just start talking about books. Okay, so the first question is, what is the best book that I've read so far in 2022? And I'm gonna cheat and answer with more than one book, as I will for practically every question in the tag. And I will doubly cheat because the first book I'm going to mention is one that I haven't actually finished yet. I have about 2 more essays to go to finish it, and that is Translating Myself and Others by Jhumpa Lahiri. This is an essay collection that came out in late May and basically includes a bunch of essays by Lahiri reflecting on her own translation process from Italian to English of other people's novels as well as her own. I, for one, am really interested in translation, and I think if you love learning languages and you yourself speak multiple languages or grew up speaking multiple languages, or you have learned one later on in your life, I think you will really value the insights that Lahiri has to share. She's brilliant. I mean, she talks about how her writing has definitely changed and transfigured with her new knowledge of Italian, and you can definitely see that in her prose. She's just lucid as ever, and I'm just in love with this collection. I feel like she understands my love of language as well, and we both have like similar relationships with different languages in our lives, so highly recommend this. Again, not really finished, but like I can't imagine that these last 2 essays that I have to finish are in any way gonna drop my rating. But yeah, so the first one that is my favorite is Translating Myself and Others by Jhumpa Lahiri. Another book that I'm considering one of my favorites of the year is The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. Has been on my shelf for quite some time, and I finally got to it a couple of months ago, and I'm blown away. It's something that I'm going to treasure for the rest of my life. It's a very accessible nonfiction. It is very big. It's a chunky book, but I think you fall in love with the people that you meet. You learn a wealth of information about the Great Migration in the United States, and you just fall in love with these real life people that Wilkerson chronicles. So yeah, I absolutely fell in love with it. It's now not just one of my favorites of the year, but of all time. Yeah, it just means so much to me now. And then my favorite fiction of the year is Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. Very surprised that I ended up loving this one so much, because pretty much everyone that I've heard talk about this book says that it's worse than Normal People. And so considering that the first time I read Normal People, I didn't really love it that much. If you've seen one of my latest videos, you'll see that I've changed my mind upon reread of Normal People, but still, when I picked up Conversations with Friends, I just wasn't expecting to love it so much. But yeah, it blew my mind, and it's the reason why I decided to reread all of Sally Rooney's books. And yeah, I love it. I have never felt so seen by a book or by characters. I love the way that Rooney writes. She's very introspective. She just gets introverted people. I just really loved Frances and her messiness. I feel like none of Rooney's characters are ever fully likable. They're all flawed, and I think that's extremely realistic, and I'm going to read everything that Rooney writes from now on. Just fell in love, and yeah, Conversation with Friends, in my opinion, better than Normal People. The next question is, what is the best sequel that I've read in 2022? This is quite easy to answer because I really haven't read any sequels except for Either Or by Elif Batuman. That was published May 24th, I think the same day that Lahiri's essay collection was published. I may be wrong about that, but yeah, I loved The Idiot by Batuman. One of my favorite reads within the past like 5 years. I think it's phenomenal. And so naturally, whatever Batuman writes, I'm gonna read. And in the fall of 2020, I actually went to Elif Batuman's reading at my university, and there she revealed that The Idiot, the one standalone book, was actually going to be a 4-part series, and each book was going to explore a year in Selin's life. So I already knew about Either Or a couple of years ago, and so since then I've just been eagerly waiting for this book. And yeah, I mean, I'm going to speak more about this in my June wrap-up, but I did like it. Not as much as The Idiot. You do follow Celine in her sophomore year at Harvard, and just she's exploring love and sexuality in this book. Mainly theorizing about it and thinking about it than actually doing it for most of the book. It still features, you know, Batuman's signature intelligence, her wit, Celine's sort of hopelessness. She's simultaneously very smart but also kind of clueless. Yeah, so if you liked those elements of The Idiot, you're definitely gonna love those parts of Either Or, and the title, of course, references Kierkegaard's Either Or, which Celine in the book is reading and is influenced by in her quest of love and sexual relationships. So yeah, I would say this is my favorite sequel, but there's really no other competition, so I guess Either Or got really lucky this time. Okay, now brace yourselves. The next question is, what are the new releases that you haven't read yet but really want to? And the answer, in short, is all of them. Yeah, I've not been great at reading new releases this year, mainly because I am really determined to tackle most of my physical TBR. Not to say that it's like a burden on me. There are some really great books on my shelves, and, you know, without like the monthly reading challenges that I have for myself, I probably wouldn't have picked them up, let's say, in like 10 years time. So yeah, it's both a blessing and a curse, because obviously if I'm focusing on the books on my shelves, I can't always focus on the new hot releases. But I'm always looking at, you know, the imprints and the publishers' new catalogs for the season, and I'm, you know, constantly adding to be read books on my Goodreads. It's an endless process, as you all know. So here is a list of some of the books that I have not gotten to yet that have been released this year, but really want to. The first came out in May, and it's by Agweke Emezi, one of my absolute favorite writers, and it's called You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty. To be honest, I don't know all that much about it. I just am an uber fan of Emezi. I've loved their works. Freshwater, that was a 5-star for me, absolutely loved it. The Death of Vivek Oji was also incredible. Dear Santhuron was great too, so like I am always going to read everything by Emezi. And so all I know about this is that it's a romance, and I like rarely ever read romance, so I feel like it would be a good start to my journey of reading more romance. Why not? Like, Emezi can do no wrong for me, so I feel like, yeah, this would be a good change of style and genre in my reading life. So yeah, that's number one. Another one is Post Traumatic by Chantal Johnson, which came out in April, and again, I don't know all that much about it, but from the synopsis I gather that it's about an Afro-Latina lawyer living in New York, who is dealing with her traumas. I believe her mother died. She's struggling on how to deal with grief and all this loss, and yeah, all I know is that it explores her intersectionality and grief and loss, and just is written really beautifully. A short story collection that I'm extremely excited to read is Out There by Kate Folk, which I think came out last month. I will put it on screen just to specify. But yeah, I read the title story in the New Yorker for a class a couple of years ago and just was really amazed by it. It's a very creepy story about loneliness and dating in the modern world, with a sort of speculative twist. And apparently this entire collection is has that same element, like these speculative, kind of creepy, disquieting, unsettling stories that, you know, bring an element of the absurd to regular life and situations. So if Out There was a representation of the entire collection, then I suspect this is going to be like a 5-star read for me. Another one is Nuclear Family by Joseph Hahn, which came out June 7th. So I'm not totally late with reading this one, but this sounds fascinating. It's supposed to be a political satire about a Korean American family living in Hawaii. Their restaurant is flourishing because of a really good review. One of their, a daughter is about to graduate college, their other son is teaching English in South Korea, but one day the parents find out on the internet that their son has a viral video in which he leaves South Korea and enters the demilitarized zone. And it sort of follows what happens with the family after that point. And it takes place around the 2018 false missile crisis in Hawaii, and it looks at, you know, generational trauma, and it has the family really tackle the unanswered questions that have persisted throughout the generations in their family. So this just sounds fantastic. And then the last one that I'm going to mention is Joan is Okay by Weike Wang, and this one came out in January. And all I know is that it follows an ICU doctor named Joan who is, you know, a bit lonely, a bit isolated, a bit solitary, and she's dealing with her identity as a first-generation Chinese American and as a woman in a male-dominated field, and issues like that, which is my cup of tea. I love reading about that. So yeah, I also haven't read Weike Wang's Chemistry, which is also another book that I really need to get to. It's been years since it's been out. But anyway, that is I'm gonna keep that list to those few books. But yeah, these are some of the books that have already been released that I really hope to get to soon. Okay, and so the next question is, what are my most anticipated new releases for the second half of 2022? And this one is easy because I feel like this year was like front loaded. I feel like all the books that I really wanted to read were published in the beginning of the year. So I don't have that many for this answer, but I will say I'm really looking forward to Elizabeth Finch by Julian Barnes. I'm looking forward to Less is Lost by Andrew Sean Greer. That's the follow-up to Less, which won the Pulitzer Prize a few years ago. I want to say it was the same year that The Idiot by Elif Batuman was nominated for the Pulitzer. So interesting. Both authors published a book at the same time, were nominated for the same award in the same year, and then published the sequel to those books in the same year. And I'm also looking forward to The Furrows by Namwali Serpell, and Serpell's book is coming out in September. Andrew Sean Greer's book is also coming out in September, and Julian Barnes' book is coming out in August. Alright, so the next question is, what is my biggest disappointment? Again, I'm going to give you a few answers here. Number one is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. I was just expecting something new, something fresh, just a new take on dystopian fiction, and I felt like a lot of it was derivative and kind of slow. So it just was not for me, and I tried watching the HBO miniseries, and I also was not really into it at all either, so I stopped watching that one. Yeah, unfortunately not for me. Another major disappointment was Time as a Mother by Ocean Vuong. Ocean Vuong is one of my favorite writers, but this just, again, kind of retread the same territory, and I feel like Vuong has sort of done it better in his previous works. I also wasn't too keen on The Famished Road by Ben Okri. I can see that he's an extremely talented writer, but I just could not connect with this book at all. It was extremely long, just maybe too surrealist for my liking, and I was just very impatient when I was reading it. So yeah, not for me either. Next question is, what is my biggest reading surprise of the year? And this one's pretty easy. It's How I've Fallen in Love with Sally Rooney in 2022. It was my year of rereading her works, and I guess it just proves that sometimes your love or hatred of a book has a lot to do with the time in which you read it, the time in which it's introduced into your life, and yeah, maybe When I first read her books, it wasn't meant to be at that moment. But something about 2022 and what I'm going through this year just was perfect for her stories. And I'm so happy that I gave her another chance. Not to say that every writer has to be for you, you don't have to give everyone a second chance, but I don't know. I always saw the potential there for me to love what she had to say. And I've already mentioned how much of a surprise it was that I ended up loving Conversations with Friends. But yeah, Sally Rooney has honestly just changed my writing life and my reading life for this year. And so you can imagine that for the next question, which is my new favorite author, it's Sally Rooney. And I am going to count this as the answer for this question. I know the question specifies that it has to be like a new or debut author in your own reading life, but I almost feel like I met Sally Rooney anew in this year. And yes, I've already mentioned she's just been really inspirational to me. I write my own short stories and I'm working on other fiction projects, and she just reinvigorated my writing and my approach to characters and introspection, and I just love Sally Rooney. I don't know what else to say. Cannot wait for whatever else her writing career provides to us as readers. And yeah, I just love her. I know she's not for everyone, but she is for me. And yeah, love Sally Rooney. The next question is, who are my newest fictional crushes? I don't really get fictional crushes. Yeah, rarely do I like gush over a character in a book like that. But since I have to answer, I guess maybe Connell from Normal People, although like he's very flawed and I don't love everything about him, but yeah, there's a tenderness about him, and I guess a similarity in how we see the world and how we interact with others that like resonated with me. And then the other one that's not new at all, but like I just want to give a little variety here, and that is Remus Lupin from the Harry Potter series. I think of all the characters in the Marauders group, he is maybe the most sensitive and understanding, and I feel like he has the most interesting backstory, most interesting and kind of saddest backstory of them all. So yeah, I've just always found this connection with Remus Lupin. So yes, Remus and Connell. I think both are kind of similar now that I think about it, so maybe that says something about me. But yes, those are my newest fictional crushes. Next question is my newest favorite character. I've mentioned Frances already from Conversations with Friends. She's another flawed person, so it's odd claiming that she's my favorite character, but she's very interesting and complex to read about. But I think the real answer for me is not even a fictional character at all. It is one of the three protagonists in The Warmth of Other Suns. And while I loved learning about all of them, you know, I don't want to like rank them or their experiences, but the one that maybe touched me the most was George Starling. We learn about his journey from Florida to Harlem, New York, and all that he experienced, and just reading about his tenacity and resilience and determination, and how he just remained hopeful throughout his entire life, no matter the difficulties. It's touching to read, it's really inspiring, but it's also really sad because a lot of times in the book, the parts that are focused on him, you see how much he regrets how, because of the time period that he was born in and raised in, and because of the lack of access to education and all of these societal luxuries, I suppose, he was never able to reach his potential. He was so smart, he had so much more to give, but he just was never given the chance. The passages that really explore that just are really moving and yeah, just sad, but you are always left with a bit of hope. He's very like passionate and vocal and really funny too. So yeah, he just seemed like an incredible person. Him in particular just gonna stay with me for a really long time. So yes, George Starling from The Warmth of Other Suns. But like I said, everyone in that book is just a hero. The next question is, what is a book that made me cry? None of them did. I'm not much of a crier when I read books. It rarely happens. But in two books, I came very close to it. I felt a lump in my throat, but no tears came out. I didn't fully commit to that sadness. But I've already mentioned one of them, The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. For obvious reasons, there's just so much trauma and horror that is depicted in that book. I cannot praise it enough. The near tears were because of happiness, because of sadness. It's just all the emotions. So that's one, and then the other one is Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. Again, near tears, mainly because of how Jean Valjean ended, how the book ended. I just thought it wrapped up really beautifully, and the writing itself was gorgeous, and the version I read was translated, like I said, beautifully by Julie Rose. So yeah, near tears, but not actual tears. But I think that still counts. Next is a book that made me happy. I think, as you've noticed, a lot of the books that I read are pretty sad, depressing books about people who don't know what to do with their lives, or who have experienced extreme trauma, grief, and loss, and societal injustice. Like, I guess those are my go-tos, but the one set of books that I always go to and revisit, like year after year, that just fills me with joy and happiness and nostalgia, is the Harry Potter series. I reread them at the beginning of the year, had a blast revisiting some of my favorite characters, and yeah, it doesn't matter how many times I read these books, I'm just always going to laugh at all the jokes, because I think they're extremely funny. I don't think they get enough credit for their humor. But yeah, I just love it. Even now, talking about it, I almost want to start rereading them again, but I know I can't because I have a lot of other books to get to. And I would say that maybe the most enjoyable out of the entire series was probably Prisoner of Azkaban and The Half-Blood Prince. I think both of those are just like comedy gold, especially book 6. I feel like that's an underrated one, but super funny. Okay, for the next question, which is the most beautiful book that I have bought this year or have received, I have two. The first one is The House of the Spirits by Isabel Allende, and I don't know, I think it looks absolutely gorgeous. It's very simple, just has a bunch of sort of gold, brownish floral pattern over white, and just the title, in black, but there's something about the simplicity and just the floral print that to me looks really beautiful. And then the other one is maybe more beautiful because of what it means to me, the fact that I now can hold the scripts in my hands and revisit them whenever I want, and because of the really lovely pictures included. That one is Normal People, the Scripts. I just think for any Sally Rooney fan, I think this is a must-have, and especially if you really love the show, which I did. It just includes some really gorgeous stills from the show. I always like seeing how the script compares to the actual novel, so it'll be interesting in the future when I inevitably reread Normal People to, sit down and compare and contrast like the written script with the novel. So yeah, I think this is beautiful, but it's more for sentimental reasons than the actual beauty of the physical copy. Okay, brace yourselves again, guys, because I have another long answer to the next question, which is, what are the books that you have to get to by the end of the year? Okay, I've got a list for you. Number 1 is Lucky Breaks by Yevgenia Belorusets. It's sort of like a quasi short story collection. It is by a Ukrainian writer who is currently in Kiev, based in Kiev, and she is publishing a war diary daily in her experiences living in Ukraine right now during the war. I think I need to give Ukrainian literature just more of a chance. I don't think I've ever read any Ukrainian literature, and as a lover of short stories and just a lover of world literatures, I think now is really the time where I should pick this one up. Another short story collection that's more of a linked short story collection is You Never Get It Back by Cara Blue Adams. She was actually my professor and my thesis advisor. She's incredible, and this short story collection actually won the University of Iowa Short Fiction Prize, judged by Brandon Taylor. So pretty incredible, And yeah, this came out in December of last year, and still haven't got to it yet, but I am like, this is definitely, I'm definitely going to read this by the end of the year. Like, I have to. Another one I actually own is Finding Me by Viola Davis. It recently came out. I love reading memoirs by people I'm a fan of already, and I think Viola Davis is incredible. People always say like, oh, she's like the new Meryl Streep, but like, she is Viola Davis. Like, I feel like Meryl is the new Viola Davis. Give her the credit she deserves. And I've heard nothing but really fantastic things about this. A few others that I want to get to are Boy Parts by Eliza Clark. That one, maybe I'm gonna push to October because I feel like it fits the spooky horror vibe, as does Pet Sematary by Stephen King, which I really want to get to in October too. I feel like there's no better month to read Stephen King than October. He is the king of horror. I also want to get to Clara and the Sun, which I own. It's a signed copy by the Kazuo Ishiguro, one of my favorite writers. Still have not gotten to it. I also want to tackle The Four Humors by Mina Sechkin. It's been compared to Elif Batuman. I don't know if it's just because they're both of Turkish descent. People tend to do that. I don't know if it's actually because their writing and topics and themes are similar, but I own this one and it looks beautiful, and it's published by Catapult, which is one of my favorite publishers, imprints out there. I feel like it has that wry, sarcastic sense of humor that I tend to go to. Also, really want to get to The Essex Serpent. This came out like, I don't even know, 2017, 2016. I have more incentive to pick it up now because there's been I think it's a Hulu adaptation with Tom Hiddleston and Claire Danes. And I don't know, maybe this is one that I push to October because it has gothic elements, but I don't know. I feel like sometimes a good gothic book can work in the summer too. So who knows? Maybe I'll pick it up like sometime this summer. A rereading project that I am definitely getting to, although like I said, I say this about literally every other book in this video, and that is rereading the Neapolitan novels, the Neapolitan Quartet rather, by Elena Ferrante. Like Sally Rooney, when I first read these books a few years ago, was not a huge fan. Actually pretty much despised most of the books in the series. I thought the first one was good. I thought the second one was brilliant until the halfway point, and then just nosedived, and then the rest of the series was pretty much at the abysmal level for me. But I don't know, there's just something about these novels that I feel, again, it's like maybe I picked them up at the wrong time. I feel like there's something there that I will love. So yeah, I will reread these books. My mom is also reading them right now, so I feel like this would be a good like project that we can read them together and like discuss it together. So yeah, I will read these books by the end of the year. We'll see in December, like if I actually have done what I've set out to do, we'll see. And then the last set of books that I'm going to include are the rest of Jhumpa Lahiri's novels and stories. I've read Interpreter of Maladies, loved it. I've mentioned the new essay collection, Translating Myself and Others, which I'm adoring. I've also read Whereabouts, which I adored too. She really is one of my favorites. She's just a master at her craft. But she has the novels The Namesake and The Lowland, which I have not read. She also has the nonfiction work In Other Words, which she wrote in Italian, and it was translated by Anne Goldstein, who translated all of Elena Ferrante's books. And since I love translating myself and others so much, I feel like I'm automatically gonna love In Other Words too. And there's also Unaccustomed Earth, which is her second short story collection. And Interpreter of Maladies was phenomenal, so I expect this one is going to be even better. So yeah, she's like unreal in her talent. I just like aspire to be Jhumpa Lahiri. She's phenomenal, and like on a superficial level, absolutely gorgeous too. Very unfair. Okay, we've come to the last question finally, and this one is fun. It's who are some of my favorite BookTube community members. I do have my list of go-to booktubers. I don't know if this first person would even consider themselves a booktuber, but they do talk about books, but mainly about their own writing process because they're a writer, and that is Shaylin from Shaylin Writes. They have the most astounding taste in books. It's like whenever I want to discover like a new title that I've never heard about, Shaylin Writes is the channel to go to. Just a phenomenal taste in literature, and also a phenomenal writer too. And they just posted a video about how they got their first agent. So just successes and intelligence and brilliance all around on that channel. So definitely check Shaylin Writes out. I also love the brilliance of the Lady of the Library. She's gone by several channel names in the past. I've been following her since I was in college, like over 10 years ago. She's one of my OG favorite booktubers, kind of one of the reasons that I've always wanted to try starting my own booktube channel. Just brilliant, again, if you like classics, if you like more academic type books, and just if you like really honest, sincere people who just genuinely loves books, and like you can tell how passionate she is about them, and she wants them to impact other people as much as they impact her life. Just definitely check out her channel. I also really love another OG booktuber, Jen Campbell. Just phenomenal. Again, kind of like Shaylin, she just has the most unique book recommendations, really on top of the publishing world. She's also a writer. Always look to writers to know like the best novels and books to recommend. And then another one that I really love is Joel from Fictional Fates. I think they're just so creative, really nice aesthetic videos. Love the vlogs, and I love watching the late night book club videos that Joel does with Noelle and Elias. So yeah, those are a few of the booktubers that I watch. There are multiple others. I feel like I spend most of my day on BookTube. So yeah, that is it for this video. Thank you for watching my own mid-year freakout tag. Please do answer these questions yourselves in the comments down below. I would love to hear like what your favorite new releases have been, what you're looking forward to reading. Let's start a bookish conversation down below. And please do like and subscribe. And I cannot wait until the end of the year when I can look back to videos like this and see like how committed I was to the goals that I set. Let's see if I actually read the books that I mentioned in this video. We'll see. But as always, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!